Coming up on Tech News Today, the Supreme Court supports free speech and the right to buy a violent video game if you're 16 years old. E-readers are leaving tablets in the dust. And AntiSec in a post-LulzSec era. A study next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
No, this is Tech News Today for Monday, June 27th, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 30% off your new account for 3 months, go to Squarespace.com and use the offer code TNT6. Welcome to Tech News Today. Bienvenue. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
Darren Kitchen.
Oh, and I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we kick around the tech news and sprinkle it with French.
Woohoo!
For your enjoyment.
Wait.
We do it for the Quebecois in the audience,
no.
not for Patrick Beja. Just saying.
I thought you did it for the lulz.
And the lulz. We'll get to more lulz. We got some LulzSec news, of course. A lot of you probably know about it. We're going to kick around LulzSec retiring later in the show. But let's start with a different hacker. Hotz apparently working at Facebook. The whole internet is aflame with the idea that George Hotz has been working at Facebook since May. Apparently some websites did research and found his Facebook page, and he had announced it on his Facebook page way back 10 days ago, June 17th. But it all started with a discussion on the podcast for My Great Fest. It was an interview, or I don't know if it was a podcast, but it was an internet show about My Great Fest, which is actually coming up in September. That Joshua from My Great Fest had challenged Hotz to find a boot ROM exploit for iPad 2, and George declined. We've got the clip that was on techunwrapped.com. Let's take a listen, and or possibly a look, depending on whether we can actually get the video.
Oh,
There we go.
There we
There
go.
we
know
go.
what's happened to Hotz. He's working at Facebook, isn't he? Something like that.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. Kim, why did Hotz back out? But I think that's because he got the job at Facebook, guys.
He didn't want publicity. He was really tired and sick of the publicity after the whole Sony shit.
So
Yeah,
this
right.
is what I love. These guys, they're just having a conversation. They're like, he's working at Facebook or something, right? Yeah, I don't know. I guess so. That's what I heard. And then the entire internet is like, oh, that's
He works at
he works at
Facebook.
Facebook.
Obviously, that means he's hacking Farmville.
I'm happy that he got a job.
Yeah,
you know,
that's good
he's not.
stuff.
He's put the whole "I'm fighting Sony" behind him. They've got to be exhausting. And Facebook very smart to go, hey, look, that guy's really good. We should hire him.
Well, Darren, you make a joke that he's hacking Farmville, but some suggest that he's working on their upcoming iPad app.
That seems to be the common rumor. He's working on the iPad app. Facebook also in the news for shutting down a large number of applications because of a tweak in their algorithm that they say now takes into account negative user feedback and makes it more likely that they'll shut you down as a bad app. And it's got some big apps off of Facebook now. Is he working on that too? Maybe Hotz behind the algorithm change.
Who knows? People are obviously upset. Developers who say, "Hey, we have thousands of daily users who now just have no access to these apps anymore." Facebook's engineering team came back and said, "Listen, what we did wrong was not be in communication with you guys about how we were going to change our methods, because we're trying to. I mean, it's all just about cleaning up spam and applications that people think are spammy and useless."
We've talked to about Project Spartan before, the rumored app store based on HTML5 that would subvert the app stores of not only Apple but Android too, because you'd just be able to run an app on any HTML5 compliant browser. Maybe
they probably want to
Hotz
clean
is
that up
working
as much as possible.
Maybe he's working on that. That'd be a waste of it. That's code. That's not his coding skill though.
I just don't think he's coding anything for a PSP. That's for damn sure.
He's not. They don't do anything for Sony at Facebook, do they?
I don't know. I don't think there's a Facebook app, but
yeah,
if there is, he's not involved in that.
I'm curious what he's doing too, but I don't really have any big idea. I just think it was really funny how it turned into this top story after based on these guys who apparently already knew about it and weren't that weren't that impressed.
Oh, yeah, he's got a day job at Facebook.
Yeah, he's working at Facebook or something. I don't
whatever.
know. Good for him.
Tired of the publicity.
By the way, side note, new service adds your drunken Facebook photos to its background check. They've been approved by Facebook to do this too.
What?
So
How
when
do they know?
when they go do background checks for employers, they will go find any public photos of you from Facebook and include it in the background check.
So if you just make silly faces, then that might go into the
You
were
you
obviously
could've been.
drunk because you look that
well,
bad.
I mean, drunk photos. I say that flippantly, but
I see.
any photos of you
Right.
would go into the back. Any photos of interest.
Heaven forbid an employer like hire a party animal, you know?
I know.
Well, it could work in your favor, right?
Yeah.
That's what I always said. It's like if an employer was upset by something I said or wrote, then I probably don't want to work with them because we wouldn't get along.
Right.
So if they're upset by the pictures on Facebook, then that's probably not the right place for
Our
them.
CEO, Lisa Kinsel, likes almost every picture I post on Instagram of wine, so I think it's a good fit for
Yeah.
me.
I noticed you post wine more these days. Kiss up.
You do what you got to do, Tom.
The Supreme Court has struck down California's video game law that restricted sales of violent video games to those under the age of 18. Brown versus Entertainment Merchants Association, the Brown there being Edmund G. Brown, our own Jerry Brown, governor, that had asked whether a state law restricting the sale of violent video games to minors violates the First Amendment's right to free speech. The Supreme Court heard that and said pretty much, yeah, it does. Antonin Scalia wrote the majority opinion. It was a 7-2 decision saying video games qualify for First Amendment protection, like protected books, plays, and movies that communicate ideas through familiar literary devices and features distinctive to the medium. Justice Scalia went on to say that there was little evidence of violence caused by video games having any effects distinguishable from those produced by other media. So the decision seemed to hinge on that, saying, well, if you're not going to restrict violent books, and you're not going to restrict the sales of violent DVDs, you're not going to card people for that, then you can't restrict violent video games and say that they are more dangerous than these other things.
I think the argument from some was, well, video games are more interactive, so you're not just passively sitting and watching a movie with, a big gang fight scene type of a thing. You are playing a character, you're choosing weapons, you're deciding to take down somebody, so that will affect younger people in possibly more harmful ways than a movie or a book
But
would.
there's absolutely no evidence to support that.
That's right.
Like, I can come up with all kinds of reasons why I think violent books might be harmful to kids, but there's no
where's
evidence
your
to
evidence?
support it.
Exactly.
And so the state can't just come in and say, well, we're not going to allow this. Now, the majority opinion did say that it's not wrong to restrict the sale of things to children if it's shown to be harmful. And in fact, the two dissenters, Justice Clarence Thomas, who apparently hasn't spoken in 5 years from the bench, is what they said in this article, just on a weird side note. But Justices Thomas and Breyer wrote dissenting opinions, both saying that they felt speech to children falls outside of the scope of the First Amendment, and therefore the decision should not have hinged on that.
But that's general enough to include all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So they're saying that Darren's niece can't go buy Die Hard, for example, if she's 10.
And that makes sense.
But that's not
I don't know.
the law
I think
as it stands right now.
But I think, isn't that the discretion up to the seller?
Well, right now, yeah, movie theaters, for instance, that's not a law.
Like the ESRB isn't a law either.
Right.
It just so happens that if you don't get your video game rated by ESRB, you're probably not going to end up in the store.
So the idea was that video games that were deemed violent under this law would be illegal to sell to anyone under the age of 18. Although a parent could buy them and give them to the kid and let them play them. So it wasn't illegal to play them. And that was the other thing the court found, was that the definition of the video games was way too vague. They said, look, obscenity law exists and says we can't allow this kind of material to be sold to anybody. But it's very specific. And they said, look, we're not saying you couldn't have a law like this if it were specific enough.
Right. But
But this doesn't fit the bill. Supreme Court is also going to take up the constitutionality of warrantless GPS monitoring. That's the idea that the cops either place or maybe even like shoot from a dart gun sometimes these little GPS trackers onto your car, and they're able to know your whereabouts. The U.S. Justice Department has demanded that the justices undo a U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit decision that reversed the conviction and life sentence of a coke dealer whose vehicle was trafficked via GPS for a month without a court warrant. Petition will be decided when the new Supreme Court term in the U.S. begins in October. The justices accepted the government's petition to clear conflicting lower court rulings. There have been 3 other circuit courts who have said the authorities do not need a warrant for GPS vehicle tracking. And the debate kind of hinges on, is it like watching someone to put a GPS on there? Because it's not illegal for me without a court warrant
to follow behind in your car.
Yeah, to follow behind in my car or go up on top of a building and see where you're going. Or is it like, you know, wiretapping? And different courts have found different things. Yeah,
like in 2001, some justices said that thermal imaging devices used to detect marijuana growing operations inside of a home was like a search requiring a court warrant.
Right, because you were seeing that the argument there was you were seeing into the house.
Yeah, it's kind of like you know,
so it was
the X-rays at the airport. You know.
Right, it's not something that you would been able to sniff out otherwise.
Yeah, but you know, I guess this is again just the laws having to change as society and technology changes. You know, GPS being so prevalent. I can see how it makes the the good guys' work a lot easier.
Also, this example of the cocaine dealer who's now, it's unclear whether or not he's going to get that life sentence or not, depending on how this all turns out. But how much is there, I mean, how many strikes are against a certain person, for example, and how much should that factor into whether a warrantless GPS search is actually warranted?
Well, the reason you need a warrant is so that you can say, like, look, this is a really bad guy, and you have a judge looking at it and saying, okay, we think that you're not just doing a personal vendetta or prying into someone's life that you shouldn't. You've got a reason. It's good to have someone impartial looking over that. That's why you want warrants. At the same time, anybody who's watched any of these cop shows, but The Wire, for instance, knows that there is an argument that the red tape and the paperwork required to get a warrant can sometimes prevent you from collecting evidence against a really bad guy. And so they want the flexibility to be able to do stuff like this so they can catch the bad guys. Do you want to risk being tracked by the FBI in order to keep yourself safe from coke dealers? Cocaine dealers, not soda dealers.
Or anyone. I wonder how that,
I mean,
what that means
it would
for
be
citizens.
easy to say, well, I don't care if anyone sees where I'm going because I'm not doing anything wrong. But that's not really the point.
Right.
Yeah, it's tricky. This is a tricky gray area.
I actually took the GPS tracker I had on Sarah's car off just because she was always checking on Foursquare wherever she. I don't even
go to
need
the
it
bar
anymore.
or the gym or here.
I know it's kind of hilarious to think, like, actually, if we got these guys checking in on Facebook during hostage situations. I don't know if you heard that story.
Yeah, we talked about it on the social.
Yeah,
actually,
that's where I heard about it.
Amber was like, "What? I don't even want to talk about this."
You probably don't
so
even
awful.
need GPS after a while. People will just be checking in.
I'm
lead you
checking
right to
in
them.
with my coke dealer. What are you doing?
Side note, not so tech related. The Supreme Court may also reconsider indecency rules on broadcast radio and TV. The famous 7 dirty words from the 1970s. The argument is, with the world of the internet and video games and so many other options, TV and radio isn't in the same privileged position where kids are as easily exposed to it as they used to be. And so
I just hope that doesn't find its way into the internet.
Well, yeah, I hope it doesn't reverse and go.
Yeah.
And because of that, the internet is the new TV. Let's regulate that instead.
I know. I've always been
censorship.
Excited by the fact that we don't answer to the FCC.
You can't post dirty words on the web after 8 p.m. until after 8 p.m. because children might be surfing the web. Thankfully, that's not the case. In fact, you can post a website full of offensive material right now.
My sister did just that.
There's something offensive to everyone, but frankly, if you're not offending someone, you're probably not doing your job. But you don't. It doesn't have to be offensive material. You can be whatever you want to say. You're free to speak your mind on the internet, and this is where we get to our sponsor, Squarespace, the easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. Squarespace has an easy-to-use UI for creating and managing a website or blog, and if someone is offended by your content and they try to, bring you down, Squarespace Squarespace is on your side. They're handling all of that bandwidth. Or maybe it gets really popular because you're causing a controversy. That's how stuff gets popular. You're not going to be crushed under the weight of people coming to your website. It totally adapts to things.
Can I tell you an honest story about this? My sister called me the other day, and she wanted some advice because she was about to talk to a web developer about creating a site for the wool stuff that she's doing, some art stuff. And I was just like, honestly, if all you're trying to do is, put together something simple, like there's no reason why you couldn't do this yourself. And she kind of considers herself a total Luddite. And I was like, no, go over to Squarespace, try it out. And she did, and her site looks great.
Yeah.
She used one of their templates, and it looks fantastic.
I'm telling you, I think you could set up a cottage business introducing people to Squarespace. just go around saying, look, you know what? I'll set you up a website. It'll be easy to use. You'll be able to manage it, I'm not saying whether you charge a small fee for that or not, maybe. But it's so easy to get them going. Definitely, if not recommend it, use it to start setting up stuff for people. Squarespace.com, and you can try it for free. A free trial at Squarespace.com does not require a credit card. Start building your website today, and if you decide to purchase the site, use the offer code TNT6 and get 30% off for 3 months. That's Squarespace.com. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. All right, let's. We are going to get to LulzSec, but there's a couple other newer things in the news today. Pew Internet Life I think it's the Pew Internet Life portion came out with a new report showing the number of U.S. adults who own a dedicated e-reader versus the number of adults who own a tablet. Before I read this report, I would obviously think, well, tablets are the hotter item here. E-readers have been around for a while, but e-readers are growing much faster than tablets, according to this report. The number of adults who own a dedicated e-reader in the United States has doubled since November 2010 to 12%. That's much faster than the number of adults who own a tablet, which has only gone from 5% to 8%.
Now, wouldn't that be, maybe this is too obvious of a reason, but because e-readers are cheaper?
I think so. Yeah.
And because tablets, besides the iPad, have not had the sales that they would have liked?
There's lots of people who want to use an e-reader and they buy a Kindle who might not be interested in everything a tablet can do. They don't really care. And then there's the Nook, which is practically a tablet, but much cheaper.
Yeah, and the Nook color, how do you make the distinction there? Is it a tablet?
It's still primarily an e-reader. It falls under e-reader because, I mean, really to make it a tablet, you have to root it. Yeah. But you're right. But I think that's what tweaks this number is you're like, well, wait a minute. This has apps. I can play Angry Birds on it.
That's
and
the only
it's an
reason
e-reader,
I would consider
and
the
it's
Nook
only
color.
$200 some dollars. I'm getting that thing, and then I'm going to root it.
Yeah.
I'm going to. By the way, watch All About Android. Eileen rooted her Nook. I think she put honeycomb on it.
Yeah, she put honeycomb.
Yeah.
Yes, she did.
So check that out.
Taking a look at
I'm not telling you how it turned out.
It was her weekend project. That's what happens when
But
you go out
yeah,
of town.
I'm out of town at a conference. I'm like, honey, what are you doing? I'm rooting my Nook.
Nice.
I was like, I love my wife.
You're such a lucky guy.
Anyway, some other interesting things out of the Pew Internet study. Hispanic adults younger than age 65, college graduates, living in households with incomes of at least $75,000 are the most likely people to own ebook readers. And Hispanic adults, when compared with white and African American adults, were the most likely to own tablets.
What?
Yeah.
They're just, they like e-readers and tablets.
Latino culture loves the tablet and the e-reader.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I thought that it was really interesting because none of the stereotypes fit of like, oh, well, it must be the socioeconomic, class.
Sure.
This is Hispanic adults with an income of at least $75,000 in the household. So this isn't the lower strata.
It's not people who are trying to save money.
Yeah.
They're just saving trees.
I don't know.
Well,
but it's some pretty interesting stuff there. Check it out. Paid Content has got a link to it, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Microsoft is expanding the use of white space to the United Kingdom, specifically in Cambridge. White space, if you don't know, is the idea that we take that bandwidth that's between television channels that is kept there in order to prevent the television channels from interfering with each other, and we use it to broadcast internet. We do wireless internet. They call it super Wi-Fi sometimes, but it's just wireless internet, like any other wireless internet. It operates in the 150 megahertz spectrum in the UK, and they've done a lot of work. Google has done a lot of work with this too to figure out how to detect any kind of possible interference and prevent it from happening. Broadcasters were sort of against it for a long time because they thought it was going to interfere with their channels, but it's proved to be pretty good. Microsoft has an experimental version up on their campus in Redmond. Now they're going to be rolling it out in Cambridge. Scotland's already got it rolling out. BT's rolling it out in Scotland.
I mean, I'm excited about that just because 150 megahertz, that's good stuff, man. That penetrates like lots of, material, so the range on it must be, wicked. Yet at the same time, I'm kind of like, oh, this is unlikely to roll out like nationwide, even in the UK, just because it's where those channels aren't going to cause interference. So it may only be available in certain little markets here and there. And then what does that mean? Like, is a device manufacturer really going to adopt like a special Wi-Fi at a different frequency just so that some, people in some smaller community can take advantage of it?
No, but I think it would be good for home Wi-Fi. Yeah,
Okay.
There've been a lot of services in rural areas where they beam Wi-Fi at you. You put an antenna up on the roof, and that's your internet connection. So they don't have to roll cable all the way out to you. It's excellent
for the last mile stuff.
Yeah,
and then you repeat with your own access point at your house.
I think thinking long term, television broadcasts go away. They move to the internet.
Well, isn't this
and then all of that space is available for this.
Weren't we talking about this just last week when, I forget who it was, but they were demonstrating some technology that was kind of like their proposed next generation of DOCSIS 3, where they were like, oh, well, we can make it, lots of bandwidth. We just dropped 2 or 4 channels of TV. Because that's really all it is.
Yeah.
I mean, over the coax, it's just bandwidth.
It's a matter of time.
All of those channels are like MPEG 4, MPEG 2, something like that streams. You just cut down on the number of channels, you can increase the bandwidth that you can allocate towards internet.
And that's the positive towards the consumer, is the consumer wants this. The IT guys want this because they're like, look, it's going to be a lot easier to maintain this network if all of our channels are IP instead of over cable. It's only the business model that doesn't want it. And that will change.
Well, it changed here in the U.S. with the digital transition, and then we had lots of spectrum to use.
Yeah, and on cable, with DOCSIS on cable, it'll eventually change. But they don't have to change, so they'll drag their feet for a longer time.
Until it's profitable.
All right, let's get to LulzSec. Just announced over the weekend that they are finished, that they always intended to only do 50 days. They just never told anybody. They still declared their belief in AntiSec and released a 50-day retrospective along with a torrent that is listed as containing a new set of ill-gotten files. There's
It's a best-of album.
Yeah, it's like there's some stuff from AT&T and AOL in there, not really all that crazy relevant. The traditional like user names and logins for various forums. Battlefield Heroes got hacked. The NATO Bookshop user account info, list of IP addresses with router passwords that are default, like admin, and
bunch of random stuff.
Yeah, just
I
random
went ahead
stuff.
and added a bunch of email addresses and usernames into Gizmodo's database just
to
see if anything came up.
They were
Nothing
letting
did
you
for me.
check to see if your email address was in any of the information.
It was basically just a little find function, so I didn't have to go look a bunch of stuff myself.
Also, a group called A-Team claims to have docs on everyone in LulzSec but Sabu and Kayla, and they've posted those up. It's actually fairly well written.
It's a fascinating read. It really is.
Don't know if it's true, but
no, it's if you just sort of scroll through all this stuff on Pastebin, it's like, and so has a sister. She's in a relationship.
Yeah,
it's like stuff that they're scraping off of Facebook.
Trying to show how much they can find out about all of these people.
Exactly.
As the hackers call it, they pulled their docs.
Yeah.
A-Team in their text file goes ahead to go ahead and call out LulzSec as not having the focus or skills to keep up after the Sony hacks, and then just kind of randomly pointing their SQL injection tools and stuff of that nature randomly to see what they could get.
Now, these hacker battles, Anonymous, LulzSec, the unidentified hacks, and now A-Team, are getting a lot of attention in the mainstream media, as if we're suddenly have a hacker problem, a malicious hacker problem. I want to be clear about. But we've seen this kind of thing before. It's not entirely new.
Oh, absolutely. It's just that it's getting the media attention right now. I mean, pick 3 letters, go on IRC and like FNet or something, and you've got a hacker group. I don't know if you remember back in the 90s, like LOD and MOD.
Right.
LOD was Legion of Doom. They were formed by this guy, Lex Luthor. Well, his name is, Sincent Gil... I can't pronounce it. Anyway, but that was like spawned out of a rift with another hacker group, the Knights of Shadow. And then they split their group into 2, the Legion of Doom and the Legion of Hackers. And then supposedly in the early 90s had this big war with MOD, the Masters of Deception, which were...
It all sounds very familiar.
It's very familiar.
Yeah.
But the thing is, all of these people affiliated with these, so the Masters of Deception, they were formed by this guy Acid Freak. That's Eli Lapadou. I can't pronounce his last name. And Scorpion, Paul Satira, and Fiber Optic. No. And then Fiber Optic. This guy Mark. Anyway, so like everybody
Basically,
knows
it
who
all
these
goes
people
back
are.
to that first Chicago album.
Right. 25 or 64.
But
the point is, it all happened back then, but it was in a smaller arena. The mainstream press didn't pay attention to the internet, and it didn't have as high profile of the targets.
Well, their targets were mainly the phone system. Supposedly, LOD and MOD were battling for turf, or hacking each other, and just trying to one-up each other in what's called the Great Hacker War of the early 90s. Fiber Optic gave an interesting talk on that at the Hope convention last year, and what they did was they published e-zines or articles. LOD called it their technical journals of pointing out weaknesses in the phone system and poking at the rival groups, very similar to the text files that we see on Pastebin today. It's part of that
with the
culture.
Same risk and danger to innocent. Innocent bystanders.
Absolutely. A lot of those LOD members ended up getting raided and prosecuted based on the technical journal stuff that they were publishing.
But we just didn't have the lines of communication that we do. I mean, this story alone, it's like we read something off of Business Insider and Boing Boing and NeoWin and the Next Web. And, it's like that we just weren't reading all of that stuff. It was just an underground kind of a battle.
And back then on the Today Show, you had
repercussions.
Bryant Gumbel going, "What is the internet anyway? I don't understand."
Exactly.
And now everybody uses the internet, so it hits closer to home.
Am I the only one who thought that the Lowell Security send-off goodbye with a flourish letter was very well written?
That's the
I mean,
thing
whoever
about-
that is, has got
You're
kind of
just
a
speaking
flair.
just as a literary
Yes.
analysis.
No, that's the thing about
like that could be a
Lowsec.
fun little short story.
They're good writers.
They are good writers, and
One of
that's
them
why it's
is,
been so
anyway.
easy for the media to pick up on it, because
Yeah.
it's an interesting and juicy thing. I mean, you could kind of consider hacking sexy. You could consider it techno-lust, if you will.
Yeah, trust that. My theory is that these guys split out of Anonymous, as we all have theorized, on purpose to grab as many headlines as possible and then fade back into the woodwork. It's a very V for Vendetta sort of attitude. And in fact, Anonymous has already said that the LulzSec members have reported aboard. They said that on Twitter. AntiSec will have full support from Anonymous and LulzSec. Expect us soon. It's all part of this anti-sec movement that's, fighting to it's a hacktivism movement that's fighting to gain awareness for
pen testers employed.
Yeah, right, exactly. Anonymous released information to the web last night that allegedly comes from the Cyber Terrorism Defense Initiative Security and Network Training Initiative. It goes on and on and on, but it's FEMA and Department of Homeland Security stuff meant to educate technical personnel in cyber terrorism response and prevention. The files were apparently published in 2009, include information on publicly available hacking resources and lists of FBI bureau addresses, as well as form letters that can be used to obtain information from ISPs.
Did you download the ISO and go through the goodies?
Not yet. No, I haven't.
Yeah. I've been combing through it, and it's interesting because on the one sense you're like, okay, it's snort, it's aircrack, it's some basic stuff, and at the same time it's like, okay, well, I'm glad at least they're educating someone on these basic tactics. It's actually
there's probably some danger in having some of this information public, but frankly, my impression is most of the people who they're fighting against already know this stuff, and so if anything, it actually educates the public more widely.
Yeah, it's also hard to get a real sense of what it was, just considering that these were two classes, one on prevention and one on incident response.
All right, we are going to now get serious, take out a lighter, and light the news fuse. Apple has been in a long and sometimes cantankerous court battle with Samsung over patents, while at the same time relying on Samsung to build the chips and other parts that go into the iPhones and the iPad. According to Ars Technica and Merrill Lynch, that all may change very soon. Reports are that Apple is looking to sign up Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company, that's the name of the company, to build the A6, that would be the next processor, sometime in 2012. So take that, Samsung.
I wonder if Audi is going to sue Apple. Hey, we already have an A6. People are going to get confused.
Well, they probably have a chip in the A6. Hey.
All right. Now we got
Thinking
a case.
like a IP lawyer now.
That's right. Speaking at the Summit Against Violent Extremism in Dublin, Ireland today, Google's Eric Schmidt took up the mantle of Google's official talk to governments guy by warning that movements...
That's his new title.
Yeah, that's what he is. Movements like the Arab Spring may encourage some governments to crack down harder on the internet. Schmidt said that some governments want to regulate the internet the way that they regulate television, and he fears his colleagues may face arrest and torture over internet use.
Yep. It's a dangerous world.
It is.
The Boy Genius report has a few more details about the rumored ice cream sandwich phone, which may come out this fall. The Boy Genius report now says that the phone will be made by Samsung and is to be called the Nexus Prime.
Sounds like, screw you, iPhone, we're going to make the Nexus Prime.
Nexus Prime. Also, their sources confirm that the screen will be branded as the Super AMOLED HD.
Ta-da.
And the sources indicate Google will work with multiple carriers and multiple OEMs on their own exclusive Android 4.0 ice cream sandwich phones.
And then Amazon's going to sue them because Amazon Prime came first.
Right.
And then Optimus will come down and be like, let's regulate.
Mount up.
Copyright wars are about to get weirder. On Boing Boing, Todd Blatt writes that he got a cease and desist from Paramount Pictures over a CAD file that he had up on one of those sharing sites for 3D printer enthusiasts. It would have allowed anyone to print out a block similar to the ones that spill from a train in the movie Super 8. Blatt took it down because he doesn't want to go to court and he doesn't want to fight it. But if you thought IP law was bad with music and movies, wait till 3D printing hits the mainstream.
That's good stuff.
Scary world, scary future. Speaking of scary, you have a sucking vampire in your living room right now. Run! Actually, this running won't help. An energy vampire. That's what kind of vampire it is. Elizabeth Rosenthal writes in the New York Times that cable set-top boxes and DVRs have become the single largest electricity drain in U.S. homes, raising bills over $10 a month sometimes, and sometimes eating more power than a new refrigerator. So a stake through the heart is not going to work on these creatures, and neither will sunlight or garlic, but some kind of power save mode might.
Yeah, that would be good. Right through the heart.
So you ever upgrade your iOS device and things got messed up and you think, hell, I'll just, downgrade to the previous version, right?
Yeah.
Well, Apple may be taking away that in the upcoming iOS 5 and inhibit downgrades to previous versions of the iOS, as well as untethered jailbreakers. Yeah, it has a lot to do with iOS 5's over-the-air, which is really cool because it just updates, what changed.
Yeah.
Pretty good stuff.
Here's an interesting way to reduce interest in your video game and enrage customers. Resident Evil Mercenaries 3D for the Nintendo 3DS is a game that once finished cannot be played over again fresh.
What?
According
Why?
to both the US and UK's game instruction manual, saved data on this software cannot be reset. So you get one saved game file for life, which also means that used copies of the game will be useless unless you also buy the saved game file from GameStop. But I bet hacked copies will work.
Yeah.
Weird.
Once again.
Newsbin, if you haven't heard of it, it's a members-only film, TV, music, and software download link site, has again raised the ire of the Motion Picture Association, who are asking broadband providers to cut them off.
Cut them off.
A British High Court order obtained last year against Newsbin ended up failing, and then the website went overseas, sprung back up. Now they're under mysterious new management. Nobody really knows who they are. So now the studios are saying, listen, let's just block access. We're not even going to take them down. We'll just shut them off. Hopefully that'll do the trick.
That'll stop them. They'll never get another link. They'll never get another domain name.
Newsbin will be finished.
Yes.
Finished, I say.
On to Randomizer.
Randomizer.
Okay, this is pretty freaky. Technology developed by researchers at the University of Tokyo allows you the terrifying experience of having your hand being possessed and moving itself without any commands from your brain. It's a device called Possessed Hand. So they're not backing away from this idea. Controls your fingers by shooting small electric currents into your wrist via electrodes strapped to your forearm, and it runs on an Arduino microcontroller. Auto-calibrates itself to make sure it is twitching the correct fingers and muscles inside your hand. The theory is that it could be used to teach people to play musical instruments by training their fingers to move correctly, and other less frightening things than I'm thinking of.
Or to just hit yourself.
Yeah, stop hitting yourself.
Stop hitting yourself.
Dude, I'm thinking
I can't. I got a possessed hand.
Think about the Uber Micro, Uber Micro, anyone in the audience at least? Okay, FPS gamers, rejoice.
Okay.
RTS.
I believe you.
No?
I'm just not familiar.
Oh.
What if you
Counter-Strike.
could rent
Okay.
What if you could rent
Can't stop hitting myself.
expert playing of an actual FPS champion?
Ah.
So you put these things on.
That's cool.
You sit down at your computer, and then that person controls the game, but you're playing.
Yeah, you download like a special Quake 3 like setup file, and then you run.
Oh, right.
this-
He wouldn't even have to be live. It'd just be like a player piano.
And then like
Yeah, exactly.
Or like a
So-
Rubik's Cube.
Well, how do they react to
solve
things in a
thing.
game?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like a special config, like a multiplayer
okay.
config for Quake 3, and then you've got this Arduino-based thing, and then you synchronize it and hit go, and then since all of your keystrokes are the same as theirs,
Right. You can,
see if you can
totally
recreate-
solve
yeah.
Pac-Man.
There you go. Oh yeah, because there's the pattern in
Yeah.
Pac-Man. Yeah.
Sounds like we're all really excited about
That's
the
actually a
possessed
great way
hand.
to learn that pattern in Pac-Man. You know, you do that pattern in Pac-Man 1,000 times. You might remember it, maybe muscle memory.
I love my possessed hand.
Or that wasn't me. That was my possessed hand.
The possessed hand is fun until somebody pokes their own eye out.
yeah.
Till somebody takes control and pokes your eye out.
Sarah's
with your
like,
hand.
Darren, stop squeezing me. I'm like, it wasn't me.
Those aren't my hands. On to the calendar.
France Telecom's Orange unit has started allowing something kind of cool. iPad owners in Austria can share an allotment of data with a phone, while other shared data plans were recently launched by the company in France, the UK, and Spain. So basically, a user pays a couple extra dollars a month, and then they get one shared plan for multiple devices. Very cool. NVIDIA says it's going to have some news to share tomorrow. What will they unveil? They're not saying, but until then, you can enjoy a mysterious video of an unnamed GPU running Crysis 2 in SLI mode. Woohoo! Tom, you're drooling. Please, get a hold of yourself. You're like Sawyer over there. Don't forget that tomorrow Microsoft is having a press event. They're launching Office 365. That's the cloud version of Word, PowerPoint, Excel, email, other software that Microsoft is targeting to businesses for $6 per person monthly. I guess we'll just go ahead and switch over. I mean, we're not paying anything now, so we might as well pay
We might as well start
per
paying.
user.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Tuesday, June 28th is the last day for U.S. users to activate free ID theft protection from Sony PlayStation. Remember, don't let that free ID theft slip through your fingers.
At least the protection.
Yeah. The protection, not actually the theft. That's not what they're offering. According to Taiwan Economic News, HP is going to follow up on its touchpad launch, that's next month, with the release of a 7-inch tablet in August.
Hope that's true.
Duke Nukem Forever is coming to the Mac also in August if you're into shooting and scoring. Some people are. Some people like that sort of thing. Can't decide between the iPhone 4S and the iPhone 5 rumors. Which one's true? Actually, maybe both. Deutsche Telekom Bank's Chris Whitmore is telling
No, just
clients...
Deutsche Bank, not Deutsche Telekom.
What did I say?
You said Deutsche
Oh,
Telekom.
God. I'm mixing my Deutsches.
It's a habit, yeah.
Deutsche Bank's Chris Whitmore, he's an analyst, is telling clients to expect both an iPhone 5 and an iPhone 4S. iPhones both in
That's
September.
splitting the difference.
Das ist sehr gut.
Also in September, the first Migrate Fest, the world's first iOS jailbreak convention, is going to take place in London. We talked about Migrate Fest a little bit earlier in the show.
September 17th.
And Star Wars Galaxy's online game is set to close December 15th. Now, Sony's saying it's not because they're declining in player numbers, it's because their contract to run the Star Wars game has simply run out.
But they want everybody to play Old Republic, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. On to the voicemail. 260-TNT show is the number. We've got a couple of good ones today. First one goes back to the conversation we were having earlier about hacktivism and the idea of whether a DDoS really should be illegal.
Hey, TNT, this is Matt Batt in Orlando. Hey, I was just thinking about all these attacks that Lowsec and Anonymous were doing on companies. And I was thinking about if they got prosecuted, as long as they're only doing a DDoS attack, not stealing information, couldn't it be covered by freedom of speech? I mean, you're not actually hurting the company. All you're doing is preventing people from entering the doorway. You're not throwing a grenade into the store. You're sitting in front of the door. Love the show.
It's actually a really good analogy, but sitting in front of the door is often illegal as well and has not been found to be freedom of speech.
Anonymous have actually posted just that argument before, and I mean, I can see how you could think that, oh, it's like a sit-in, but come on, this isn't UC Berkeley. It's not a sit-in, it's a DDoS.
Well, it is, it is. I think it is a sit-in, but a sit-in is also illegal. I mean, the cops show up at a sit-in, and
Martin Sheen's been arrested for that sort of thing like 65 times.
They drag people off for trespassing or blocking the entrance. fence or, you know, impeding progress on a sidewalk. There's all kinds of ways that you can have a sit-in be illegal. So DDoS, I think, fits the bill for that, where it's controversial and
you know
it
what?
denies access to something.
When you're a citizen DDoSer as well, unless you're taking proper precautions, which I'm assuming most citizen DDoSers aren't, you're putting yourself in the same kind of risk of, you know, being a protester arrested at the rally because you know, your IP is there.
So and if you're cool with that, like a protester at a rally, then that's fine. But you should know that this isn't an easy, sneaky way that's, you know, no one's ever going to know. I mean, low orbit ion cannon is not secure.
Yeah.
So be careful.
Yeah, and you can't just like, let's do it through Tor. Yeah, that's not going to work.
But I think the analogy is there. It's just there are also specific rules against, or laws, not rules. There are specific laws against DDoSing now in many countries as well. Another voicemail here about the Apple TV rumors. Not Apple TV, but Apple making a TV.
AT&T Crew, this is Kevin from Texas. Love the show. Hey, just want to say I saw your article or story about the Apple television. And while I'm not really a big Apple fanboy, I think it's time for somebody to innovate in the software space around television. I think it'd be really cool if you could watch a football game and have multiple camera streams coming into your television at the same time, and kind of do what Jason does for a living and open up multiple windows and replay and look at different camera views and stuff. Anyway, something like that would be neat. But if they're just bringing the Apple TV and embedding it in a screen, I'm not really interested. Thanks.
No, I don't want to speak for Jason, but you're sitting back watching the Super Bowl with a brewski. Do you really want to be running a board?
No.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it goes from being a passive kick back and drink a beer experience to work.
There have been companies that have experimented with this a little bit, but they've never really gone anywhere.
That was one of the big sells of DVD. Remember, like when DVD first came out, I was like, you get multiple angles of the fight scene and.
Major League Baseball does the thing where you can choose which camera angle you're looking at during a baseball game. Everybody gets really excited about that, but it's a lot of work. Most people realize, you know what, I like it when someone else is picking the angle. That's a lot easier.
The promise of it is cool, but the problem is it's probably good in small amounts. Like if I'm watching something and it finally hits me, that would be cool to be seen from this angle, then I'd like to have the ability to do that, but the small amount of usage that would get wouldn't warrant the development
in replay
and all that.
In replay, I would use it, but you're going to end up missing more stuff if you're sitting there like,
totally.
I'm just slow. I missed that. With some exceptions. I'm sure there's one person out there who goes, I'm fast enough. I do it all the time. I don't know what you're talking about, Merritt. You are amazing.
You have Uber Micro.
Yeah. On to the email, TNT@twit.tv. Tim wrote in and says, it seems that a lot of people don't know that the iWeb program versus the Mobile Me service supports posting the site to alternative hosting providers. So as long as people have the original iWeb documents on their Mac, just sign up with any hosting provider, post it up there. Don't need a special program to transition away, just the original iWeb files, and most hosts will be able to support the transition. So
good to know.
You're not screwed.
If you're an iWeb user, don't jump.
Please.
It's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. Thanks, everybody who submitted stories on Reddit today. We're getting close to 1,000 folks in our Tech News Today subreddit. At technewstoday.reddit.com. Big thanks to Falcon Elm, Nebson, Travis Stubbs, J. Johal 2000, A1BY, Captain Kipper, Pete C, PC Guy 999, and more. Like I said, there's close to 1,000 people on here, so I could spend all day thanking everybody who submitted stuff. But even if you don't want to, submit stuff, go there and vote stuff up or down. Let us know what you want to hear us talk about on the show, because we do include it. And also bricks, buy bricks before you want your brick ordered before we move into the new studio, which is coming up in a couple weeks. Otherwise, you just feel like kind of behind. Bricks.twit.tv is the place to get yourself a brick. Darren Kitchen, always good to have you on Mondays. What's going on at Hack 5?
Well, the cool thing about Hack 5 is we've got this new spin-off show called Hack Tip, and if you're not,
Wait, the cool thing about Hack 5 is another show?
Well, the Hack 5 network is
I see.
Consider it,
Okay,
I guess.
good.
And
brand.
there you go, the brand.
brand.
We've got this new thing called Hack Tip, and it's for, it's a very short format. If you're not uberly on all the stuff, Shannon's got a great one this week on Introduction to Virtual Machines, if you've never done that before. I've got one coming out later today that's all about the different protocols of our good friend 802.11.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching us. Thanks to Ayaz and Sarah for filling in on Friday, and Will.
Of course.
For filling in when I was gone on Friday.
Course.
Ayaz finally got some time off. When are you taking time off?
Oh, I don't know, man. Never.
She needs a break, folks.
I won't leave.
Live.twit.tv is the place to watch us live. Twit.tv/TNT is the place to find us on the internet. 260-TNT show is our phone number, and TNT@twit.tv is our email address. We'll see you tomorrow.